Hello students, welcome to our second lesson on matrix multiplication. So today we are moving on from the basics of matrix multiplication, and we're going to use matrices, including matrix products, to model and solve problems. For example, a costing and a pricing problem. So first of all, I want you to consider how we could use matrix multiplication to calculate an academic result. So we've got a sample student called Lily. She scores 70% for her first assessment, 60 for her second, 45 for her next, and 55 for her final. Now the weightings for this are as follows. So the problem solving modelling task is 20%, so 0.20. IA2 is worth 15%, or 15 out of the 100 marks. So 0.15, IA3 the same, and the external exam is 50% worth. So what we're going to do is set up two matrices. So we're going to calculate the Lily's results using the matrix multiplication method. And you can see that we've got an S for scores and W for weighting. So first test, number of rows equal the number of columns. Yes, that looks good, fine and dandy. So then we can just note that this is what, a 1 row and 4 columns for the first one, and the second one is what, 4 rows and 1 column. Now if we just multiply that, we're just going to say, if I'm going to get lucky, these pens, so we're just multiplying those two together and then those two together and so on. This is what you can see down here, and then these two, that's what we can see here, and then finally these two, and that's what you can see here. Now we add them all together and we leave this in a 1 by 1 matrix, but we can use that number to interpret a result, and we can say that Lily's final score for the year is 57.25. and that would be out of 100 in this case. Now let's have a look at another example. So this one's a manufacturer. Oh, Mr. Beasley can't spell. Okay, so a manufacturer makes 3 products, X, Y, and Z, each requiring different stages of construction, A, B, C, and D. Now matrix T shows the time required to make each product, and each stage of production costs the manufacturer, so 45, 20, 110 and 30 respectively. And so that's the stage of production costs there. I could have called it C for costs, I suppose, but I had a C there, so I didn't want to confuse. So let's have a look at our first matrix. So matrix T, we've got what? The products down the left hand side. I've labelled them X, Y and Z, and I've labelled each stage A, B, C and D. So we can see that matrix T is quite easy to interpret, and then matrix M is what, just the stages of production's costs. So what we're going to do is multiply row 1 by column 1, row 2 by column 1 in this case, isn't it, and row 3 by column 1. And so let's have a look at this. So here's our 5. And what do we need to multiply it by? 45. So here's our 5 by 45. And then what's the next step? 8 by 20. So here's our 8 by 20. And then what have we got? 5 times 110. So here's our 110. And then finally, is that a 3 times 30? And there's our 3 times 30. Now just sum all of those up and you'll get 1025. And then do likewise for the next row. So just row 2 times that column and then row 3 times that column. You should get up with these results. So to interpret that, we just say product X costs 1025, Y 430 and Z 593 to manufacture. Okay, so we are moving on now from our simple routine work, and we are using this matrix multiplication in some practical examples, and I'd like you now to use that to work on your mastery exercises, please.